Everyone is talking about whether or not the Denver Broncos made the right move in trading for Russell Wilson, how bright their future can be. Everyone is talking about the Washington Commanders, whether or not they made the right move in trading for Carson Wentz. But I see very little dialogue about the teams that traded away their quarterbacks, Seattle and Indianapolis. Now, on a recent episode of our podcast featuring Seahawks analyst Griffin Sturgeon, we talked a lot about the Seattle Seahawks, and I'll link that podcast episode for you guys here so you can go watch that. We had to see a lot of insight into the Seahawks' future and what that might look like. So that means this video is going to be about the Indianapolis Colts. Now, when I think about the Indianapolis Colts, the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that they have, at most positions, either very little talent or very little depth. I know this was a pretty good team last year. Jonathan Taylor's a great player. Nyheim Hines is a great player. But outside of running back, you don't have a single position on that team where you feel you have good depth and good talent. Even the offensive line, which is a good offensive line, could use some depth work. But that is far from the biggest need. I would not worry about that right this second. Your biggest needs right now, we're going to start with offense. Quarterback, number one. And getting rid of Carson Wentz helps because now you have some money to work with. So that is a silver lining. But yes, you absolutely need a quarterback. Now, the second thing you need is some receiving talent. And that doesn't have to be wide receivers. It can be tight ends. But the receiving talent on this team is awful. It's terrible. It is atrocious. There is a total lack of it. Michael Pittman is solid. Paris Campbell, I guess. T.Y. Hilton, how old is he now? You see the problem here where you just don't have elite weapons to go to. You really don't. And you have to in this league right now. So that is something that I'm absolutely looking for offensively. I think it's going to be a huge need to the point where it's this would be a fine receiving core if your quarterback was, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, someone who is exceptional. But if your quarterback is going to be mid-tier, which it probably will be, you cannot go into this season with this receiving core. You will get exposed. Now we're going to move to the defensive side of the ball because I think this was an area where a lot of people thought the Colts were pretty good, and they were last year. It wasn't a bad defense by any stretch of the imagination, but at this point in time, it is a disaster. Honestly, it is. As a matter of fact, I would challenge any Colts fan to sit here and tell me who they think will start at corner for them next year and actually be salvageable. It's to the point where I don't even know where to begin. With every other position for the Colts, it's okay, they kind of have a guy, right? It's Sam Ehlinger's at least a guy that you drafted that maybe you feel comfortable with. As actually, I can't even lie and say that. If you feel comfortable with Sam Ehlinger, I can't help you. Cornerback and quarterback are two positions on this roster where you cannot go into the season with the current guys that you have at all. You will get exposed. See, this can only age poorly. I'm going to make this video and then Rocky Singh is going to be the number one cornerback in football next year, and Sam Ehlinger is going to lead the league in passing touchdowns. It's going to be great. And then I think the next and final big thing that you need to do this offseason is add some depth to your front four, right? Darius Leonard's a good linebacker, and you have some good players on that D-line. It is just not good enough and not deep enough. Right, that is the biggest problem with a defensive line. You either need to be exceptionally good or exceptionally deep, and currently the Colts are not either. And until you fix that, you're not really going to be able to do a whole lot, especially when you don't have a secondary. So you need to fix both of those things. But if you can only fix one, please fix one. Okay, so those are my top four biggest needs: quarterback, corner. Receiving threats can be a tight end, can be a receiver, but you need an elite receiving threat of some kind. And there's guys out there, you just have to go get them or get a plethora of mid-tier guys. It's the same thing as your D-line. I either want you to be exceptionally good or exceptionally deep, no in between. And then lastly, of course, D-line. Those are your four biggest needs. Let's talk about how to fix them now. At QB, you have a lot of options. I think this is seen as a year to not need a quarterback, and it kind of is. But, when your option right now is Sam Ehlinger, I think you can only go up. So number one is Jameis Winston. I think that should be your top priority. If you can get him, I think that's a guy that totally changes your offense. Even from a year ago, I think he's a big upgrade from Carson Wentz. I would go after Jameis Winston in a heartbeat. Next guy is Mariota. And as of now, I think Mariota isn't great. But again, he's an upgrade from Sam Ehlinger. And he at least gives you the option to be, relatively dual threat, run heavy, that kind of stuff. I would take a stab at Mariota. I think he deserves a job. Jimmy Garoppolo is an option, and I know that's a guy who has been rumored to go to the Colts. We will see. What are the odds that at the time that this video comes out, the Colts already have a quarterback? I think very high. I'm recording this video on a Saturday. It will come out Wednesday. Yeah, the Colts are probably going to have a quarterback. And I wouldn't be surprised if it were Jimmy Garoppolo, but I feel like he might be a little bit more expensive than what they're looking for. Kirk Cousins kind of the same way. Derek Carr wouldn't be a bad option, but he's probably going to need to get extended soon. Again, I think your number one priority at quarterback, especially when you're coming from Carson Wentz, who your number one goal is to get a mid-tier quarterback on a low contract. It's Jameis Winston. That's your guy. All right, now let's move on to corner, because now we can spend some money because we didn't overpay at quarterback and we didn't keep Carson Wentz, which again, we didn't overpay at quarterback. Now we can go get a corner and actually spend some money on him. The guy you want is J.C. Jackson. He clearly doesn't want to stay in New England at this point. What better place to go when you don't want to stay in New England than Indianapolis? No, but in all seriousness, the way the Colts secondary is right now, getting a guy like J.C. Jackson, who is an all-star corner, he is an amazing corner, great ball skills, great in coverage. You really could not do a whole lot better there as far as an acquisition this offseason that would immediately impact your defense. That is probably the best you could do. And guess what? You have the money to pay him pretty much whatever he wants. And that is why you save all this cap space. You get to make the one purchase that'll set you straight. And that's him, J.C. Jackson. That is the guy that you're spending most of your money on. There's other guys out there like Gilmore. I know Hayden is a free agent, but they're both kind of a little bit out of their prime at this point. I'm probably not making a move for them unless I can get both of them. And that's if I couldn't get J.C. Jackson. That would be the only scenario in which I'm going after guys like that. But my number one priority is getting J.C. Jackson. Absolutely. Your next big need is receiver. And earlier I was talking about, you have T.Y. Hilton, I guess. I lied. You don't have T.Y. Hilton. He's a free agent. Your next guy up would have been Zach Pascal. He's a free agent. You know who else is a free agent, though? For a bare bones receiving core who could use an influx of talent? Allen Robinson. Why are we acting like that's not an acquisition we should be making? Juju Smith-Schuster. Again, why are we not acting like this is an acquisition we should be making if we're the Indianapolis Colts? If you wanted to get some more speed, some gadget guys, maybe you make a move for Jakeem Grant. That wouldn't cost you a whole lot. You want a slot receiver? Okay, Christian Kirk. There's a plethora of guys available. And if you wanted to draft a receiver, guess what? You can do that too. You're going to have your pick of guys there probably that are pretty good. With your second round pick, George Pickens will be there probably. In the mocks that I've done, he has been there every single time without fail. And it's close. It's someone probably could have taken him, but I think a lot of the injuries are preventing people from taking him. But he's definitely a talented guy. He was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school for a reason. He could definitely be a difference maker if he can stay healthy. Long story short, there's a lot of receivers available. Lockett is a guy that I would like to trade for, and that would be an example of if you gave up, your second round pick, and he probably ends up being better than most of the receivers that you would take with that pick, at least for the next few years. So I think that would be a valid trade I'd be willing to make. You're going to have your options available to you. They're out there right now, but it's a decision about whether or not you would want one or two really good receivers, or maybe just one really good receiver, or a bunch of guys. And this way you add depth, because like we talked about earlier, I either want you to be really, really good or really, really deep. And both would be great, but there's nothing wrong with having either option. I mentioned you could also get a tight end. You'll probably have some decent tight ends available in the second round if, again, you don't trade the pick to get Lockett or something. So, yeah, I think you have viable options available. but you have to do something. Please get weapons for Jameis because he should be your quarterback. And the next really big fix I would say you need to make right this second is probably fixing your D-line or just adding pieces. Kwity Paye is, fine. DeForest Buckner is good. But outside of that, you don't really have pieces. And you have no depth. And you have no other, big talented guys there. So my suggestion would be to go out and get some depth pieces. There's no Myles Garrett's in free agency, and with your second round pick, I doubt you're getting TJ Watt. But Dante Fowler's a free agent. Jerry Hughes is a free agent. Jadeveon Clowney's a free agent. Options. Same thing at receiver. Options, but you have to get these guys. Emmanuel Ogbah, Larry Ogunjobi, these guys are all free agents, and they're all good players. Hell, there's a lot of guys from the Cleveland Browns defensive line last year that are free agents, and it performed pretty well. It wasn't great, but it's depth pieces, and that's what you're looking for. Malik Jackson, Tack McKinley, again, Clowney, your options. Get your guys, please. Will they do all of those things? I don't know. The problem with the Colts is that they're not big spenders. They never really have been, and if they don't go out and make all the moves that they need to do, because they have a lot of holes on this team, they're gonna be in some trouble. That's the truth of the matter. They will be in trouble if they can't find ways to make moves this offseason. They have to.
2 days later.
All right, Colts fans, you might want to plug your ears for this one, because what the hell is your team doing? I have no words. You let J.C. Jackson get signed. You let Christian Kirk go. And I get, Christian Kirk got a lot of money. But you have the most cap space in the NFL. You don't have to be frugal. You still have a chance. Gilmore's still available. Hayden's still available. Tyrann Mathieu still available. You're going to have guys available to get for your secondary, which you need help in. Kenny Moore's a good player, but he cannot be the only good player in your secondary. Darius Leonard, good player, cannot be the only good player in your linebacking core. DeForest Buckner, good player, cannot be the only good player on your defensive line. Not to mention, of those three, probably only Darius Leonard's an elite defender. So you're not even getting 3 elite defensive players. You're getting 1 elite and 2 pretty good. And that's it. And then a receiver. Juju's still available. You're going to have some options there as well. But if you go through the rest of free agency, I know the Colts are notorious for not being big spenders, but you have to do something. Your division's not that good. You cannot just fold as a franchise and be like, well, we don't have a quarterback, so I guess that's it. I guess that's wraps for us. Of the guys that are left, this is what you can still do. Get Jameis, get Juju, get Gilmore, get Hayden, get Mathieu, or get any combination of those guys defensively. You lost your chance to get Ogbah, you lost your chance to get Ogunjobi, but that's okay. There's still some options out there. You have the most cap space in the NFL. There is literally no excuse for coming out of this free agency with, anything less than at least filling some depth. At the very least, you don't have to get, the most high level players. I know that can be difficult for some teams because it's not just about we could just pay him more. Sometimes it's about team fit. Sometimes it's about, does the player want to be there? And if he doesn't, well, then you can't convince him. But if you can't get anyone, L. And I know in the first part of that video, I said that it would probably end up aging poorly. By the time the video comes out, that things were probably going to look a lot different. But I really didn't think they would just do nothing on day one. Again, most cap space in the NFL. The Jaguars had a ton of cap space, and they went on a spree because that's what you should be doing, right? If you overpay for some guys, so be it. You kind of have to. The Colts were hands down the biggest loser from day one of the NFL's free agency. Hopefully through the rest of it, they can pick it up a little bit, not be totally incompetent, not fold as a franchise. Your division's not that good. It's Houston, Jacksonville, you, and Tennessee. I mean, you could very easily be second. I cannot imagine that they go through this entire free agency period. Again, I know they're not big spenders. You have to do something. This is sad. What's up, hotties? Blaiden Kirk here. Thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, would really appreciate it if you would leave a like, drop a comment, of course, subscribe if you are new. We will be back Friday with a new episode of the Stay Hot podcast. And as always, tons and tons of content coming away on all platforms. Until next time, from Lemon Boy, catch you on the flippity flop.